Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Um, no, honestly, I don't really know why I was doing that. I just, I just felt like being ridiculous. At the beginning of this, I have like a chapstick somewhere, and I don't know where it is. So here we go. Y'all, we're gonna be talking about dating, relationships, date number one, how to get to that date number one. What does it even mean? This is what we do on Saturday nights. We take a couple weeks off, and we're back for the month of July. July. Apparently, I cannot say the word July. We're back for the month of July. So here's the thing. I'm about to type this. This is gonna be called "How to Date," Part One. What is it? I forgot already. Here we go. Part one, the 5-step process. Y'all, we're going to do 5 steps on how to date. Recommended 18 and up. I love y'all, but let's just be real here. I'm a grown up. I don't talk about dating and relationships with minors. I think there's a law against it. Okay, we're going to talk about that. It's going to be good. Oh, that didn't mean to do that. Y'all know me. I'm 100 years old. I'm just trying to live life out in these streets. Okay. And also you can see that part of the wall is like not decorated at all. There's some decorations here. Let's just jump into this, guys. This is a 5-part thing. So this actually started off as a joke and not in any way a petty joke. But it started out, I said it on an Instagram live once. I was like, y'all make me feel like I should just do a 5-part or like a how to date Instagram live. And I was kind of just being silly. And then a lot of you guys were like, but can you do that? And I was like, yeah, like, okay, sure. So I kind of started off like being silly. And then you guys were like, no, I really want that. So here we are. We're going to do this. I'm going to do this this is going to be a 4-part series. So far, it's going to be a 4-part series. We might add more as we go. So this week, we're going to be talking about the 5-step process of dating. This is going to be for single people that desire to be in a relationship, okay? So if you are single and you're like, why are you trying to tell me I need to get a man? I'm not telling you that, boo. You don't have to be watching this. This is for single people that desire to be in a relationship at some point. Then the second part is going to be how to take it to the next level. So next week, we're going to talk about like after, those dates and you're trying to see, okay, how do you move forward into it being a relationship? That's what we're going to talk about. Then the third week, this is going to be the third weekend of July. It's going to be it's going to be boundaries in dating. We're going to touch a little bit on boundaries in dating today, but we're really going to touch on boundaries in dating on that third week. And then the fourth week, forgive me, but it's necessary. It's going to be called How to Break Up. And it's going to be, I believe, a very necessary conversation on, you can't just like go on a bunch of random dates and then just marry everybody or be with everybody forever. At some point, you might realize this might not be a good idea. And so you might need to break up. And so this is going to be four weeks. Some of those titles may change as the weeks go on, and I continue to read your DMs and I continue to pray for you guys and all that kind of stuff. As you guys know, I do most of the stuff in real time. I don't like to be like, oh, this is what I know and this, like, I know everything. Like, no, yes, I do research, and yes, I share a lot from my own personal experiences, but also I listen to you guys and what you guys need and what your hearts are yearning to understand, and I try to share from that perspective. So we're going to go ahead and start with this 5-step process of dating, part 1 of the How to Date series. It's a 5-step process of dating. Now, it might, and I know a lot of you guys have asked if this is going to be saved for IGTV. So just so you know, the goal is for this always to be saved to IGTV, because technology is crazy sometimes. I never like to make that promise, but that is the goal, for this to be saved to IGTV and Instagram and YouTube and everything. Also, thank you to everyone in Ghana and also other parts of the world where it is a crazy time of night and you guys are still here. I'm super excited about this. Okay, here we go, guys. It might seem like step 1 of of dating is to get a date, and it's actually not, based on this 5-step process that I got from my brain. Step one is actually understanding what dating is to you, and it's understanding what dating means to you and what your intention is behind dating. Because if you go into dating thinking like, I've heard a lot, in movies and stuff like that, and of course movies are not a true depiction of life, but it's just like, oh, you just got to put yourself out there. And that is actually a terrible idea, to just go put yourself out there, go get a date, go get someone to talk to. And then the entire goal is like, there's no goal. It's just, oh, we're just going to talk. We're just going to see what happens. That is a recipe for disaster. Without going into dating, knowing what you want, knowing what you need, and knowing what makes sense for your heart, you are opening up your heart to who knows what. And so step one is asking yourself the question, what is dating to you? And so when I was single, the answer that I essentially had, and you guys are welcome to use this answer, I will of course share this answer after this broadcast, and you can use this as much as you want, but the definition that I've always kind of gone by is dating is spending one-on-one time getting to know and enjoy someone, potentially leading to spending almost all of your time with someone. So that is the number one step. You have to figure out what is this? And so that's the definition that we're going to be going by, is that dating is spending that one-on-one time with someone, getting to know them and enjoying them, in the hopes of, going on 2 dates, then 3 dates, then 4 dates, and it leading into spending most of your time with that person, like a long-term relationship or even marriage. And so that is the hope of dating, and the kind of definition that we're going to be operating in. Sometimes you might call this dating, you might call this courting. You guys have heard me use the word courting a lot. For the purpose of this conversation, and most of these conversations that I have on this topic, the difference between dating and courting, we're not really going to get into that right now. I mean, we're using the words dating and courting, and I just gave that definition to kind of apply to both in the context of this conversation, and again, most of the conversations that I have. And then underneath kind of umbrella of that definition, underneath kind of the umbrella of that definition is understanding the core value. And you guys know my favorite word is intention. And so it's just making sure that you're going toward everything with intention. And so, if a guy is like, hey, I want to go on a date, and he wants to, and I actually had this happen when I was single. He was like, look, why don't you just come over to my house and we'll just figure out where, we're going to go for lunch or whatnot. It was never my intention to go to a guy's house when I was single, because I just did not want to. For a long list of reasons, I did not want to. I knew that my intention was to get to know someone, and I don't need his couch or his bedroom or living room or kitchen to get to know him. You know what I mean? And so know your intention so that you can move forward with making the right choices. So step one, what is dating to you? And operate in your core value of what is dating to you. So step two is get a date. You probably guessed that already. Step two is to get a date. I'm using my laptop right now, and I almost just did this to scroll because I was scrolling on my phone. I'm Portia Love just said, definitely don't go to his house. That is a setup. Here's the thing. I'm just saying, a lot of people think that that's a very old-fashioned value and a very just cheesy value. Okay, fine. I have old-fashioned and cheesy values. In the same way that I now, as a married woman, pre-COVID, I would do in-person songwriting sessions with other songwriters. I am not gonna go to another songwriter's house, me and him, and write a song. You know what I mean? It's distasteful. It looks wrong. Even if we have the purest of intentions, we are still human. And even if we don't, make bad choices, it looks wrong. It's not going to happen. And so I operated in intention when I was single, and I still operate in intention when I'm married. So back to step two, getting a date. So a lot of people are always always like, this is like the most interesting part. It's like, where do you get the date from? So the date that you go on, you can go on a date with a friend. You might have a crush on someone that you've been friends with for a while. It might be, I want to speak this. It might be a friend of a family member or a friend of a friend. So I worried that like my phone could break up at the wrong moment and y'all could think that I said it might be a family member. No, that's not what I said. It could be a friend of a family member or it could be a friend of a friend. It could be a coffee shop. You could see someone in person. I understand that right now with COVID, with the pandemic, I know everyone has a lot of different opinions, the way they're operating. And so it's not as easy. It's like you can't even really see someone's full face. I'm like, no, for the most part, because a lot of people wear masks. So we're not going to make that an awkward conversation right now, but like, wear them. You can't even fully see someone's face for the most part, and it's not all about physical attraction, but you still don't want to just like take a risk and just hope you like what's under there. So when it comes to their face, and so I do understand that dating in the time of COVID can be really complex, and in the time of a pandemic can be really complex, but note that I'm kind of saying this stuff outside of that lens. So another place you can meet someone by being set up. You can meet someone by going to church. I know a lot of people are like, no, you can't meet anybody at church. Like, church is the worst place to meet someone. Well, that's where I met my man. You can meet someone at a concert. I met my man at a concert at a church. You can meet someone at the store. Some people, flirt in the grocery stores. You can meet someone at the gym. You can meet someone at your job. It honestly depends on where you work and what that looks like. I'm not trying to get anybody in some HR trouble, but there are lots of different places to meet people. And you can also meet someone online. I know a lot of people are very anti-online dating, and that's okay. You don't have to be pro online dating. A lot of people, they say like, oh, I don't want to do online dating because I like the way things used to be when you would just meet someone organically. That's okay. Also understand this year that we're living in right now is 2020. 15 years ago, you would not be watching a singer-songwriter on something called Instagram Live. You see what I mean? So if you want to operate in the mindset that you want to meet everyone and connect with everyone the same way that people met and connected years ago, you should delete Instagram. You should not follow anyone on social media. You should throw your iPhone away, your Android away. It's just not practical to say that you are against online dating from the perspective of I want to do things in the old-fashioned way. Because if you are, then when you do meet someone in person, you need to be prepared to only write letters. You need to be prepared to, only speak on the phone or only speak on a payphone if you genuinely want to do things the way they did back in the old day. With that being said, online dating, again, it says down here at the bottom that this is for 18 and up, but of course, children's gonna be children sometimes. With that being said, online dating, even though it can be a great place to meet people, there is still like a long list of things that you need to do when it comes to safety and intentionality and being wise. You shouldn't just log on to any like dating app and just be like, okay, here's a sexy picture of me. Let me see how many swipes I get. It's not wisdom. It simply doesn't make sense. So I actually have, if you have, I was about to say if you have a phone, you probably do if you're watching this. But if you go and watch, go to my podcast, you can go to Spotify podcasts or anywhere else, and I'll find this episode on Spotify podcast, and I'll post it on my story after this live. I have a full episode on online dating and about do's and don'ts and how to be safe and how to be wise during that, because you really do want to make sure, you know what I mean? You want to make sure that you're not just like logging onto an app and being like, let me just post this picture of myself looking like wife material and just seeing what kind of man I get, and then I'll just meet them at Target and we'll talk. That is a really irresponsible choice. So that is another way to get a date, but it should not be, I almost pulled my earring out. It should not be like your sole hope, your sole purpose in finding a date and then making poor choices based on something that could also resemble desperation. So we're still in step 2, which is getting a date. And I just give you guys a rundown of where to get a date from. That sounds like I'm like, okay guys, here's where to shop. That sounds kind of creepy, but here we go. We're gonna run down a list of ways to get a date, which is still underneath getting a date. And so before I do this one, I would love to know in the comments below if you have ever asked someone on a date before. And a lot of you guys in your 20s and 30s, you guys might be like, of course I have. A lot of people haven't, and that's okay. I would love to know in the comments below, have you ever asked anybody on a date, or have you ever told anybody that you were interested in them? And if you could add how old you are next to it, that would be very helpful. Because I got a lot of DMs saying, look, I'm 25. I've never been on a date. I've never been asked on a date. I've never asked anybody on a date. I'm really curious. And I know some of you guys are typing before I said if you could add your age, which is totally okay, but I would not be mad at you guys if you retyped it. So, most of the ones I'm getting are saying no. Someone said apparently on accident once. Someone said never, and I'm 29, never, and I'm 30. D Swan said, I asked my wife on a date, she said no the first time, but later she said yes, and I'm 30. Never, no. 24, never, yep, and I'm 22. Nope, but I told someone I liked them, I'm 22. I have, and I'm 22. Okay, awesome. So it's definitely a lot of mixed responses here, which is cool, which is great, but a lot of people are saying no. So I want to tell you guys how you can get a date from the most obvious way to a very inconspicuous way. So the number one way that you can get a date contingent on the person saying yes is to ask them on a date. Now, for the most part, I mean, again, I'm kind of old-fashioned and you guys know that. For the most part, I usually recommend guys being the ones to ask a girl on a date. I don't think that there's anything wrong with a woman asking a guy on a date personally, but I do believe that the man should be the one that is pursuing the girl. And so I don't believe that women should be like chasing men down the street like, come on, I'll take you to coffee and I'll buy it, because desperation is not a cute look. And so even though I say the number one way to get a date is to just ask somebody for a date, I would still be like really intentional on that. And so, what up, OAB Danny? How you doing, girl? I owe you like 5 DMs. I am so delayed on messaging all humans. I'm the worst at communicating, guys. It's terrible. So yeah, so I totally recommend that a guy should ask, but I do believe that there is a time, there is a scenario where a girl can ask, or as I've shared many times in my story, do something like dropping the handkerchief, which is what I did. Especially considering the situation that I was in, being like a known person and my husband having met me in my autograph line. At some point I had to drop a handkerchief. I had to drop a hint because he was not going to have any idea and he was not going to ask me out, which is not a bad reflection on him. It's simply the fact that logistically I actually have security guards around me and like he was operating in wisdom. So, there are some situations. The second way to get a date, and again, we're moving from obvious to inconspicuous. So the second way to get a date is to clarify if getting together with someone is actually a date or not. Oftentimes, like a guy might be like, hey, do you want to like go get coffee later? And a girl doesn't know if it's a date or not, but she's like, yeah, let's get coffee. And then 3 weeks down the line, they haven't talked, and she's like up all night with her friends, sending screenshots back and forth of the fact that he's liking people's photos on Instagram, and everybody's trying to figure out if it's a date or not. And that, who in the world wants to be in that predicament? Who in the world wants to be in that situation? So before you go out with someone one-on-one, I mean, if somebody's like, hey, we're all going to Six Flags, the pandemic's over, and it's like 15 people going to Six Flags, it's probably not a date. But if he's like, have you seen the new Chipotle down the street? And it's just the two of you guys, you owe it to yourself. Like, you're grown. You are a grown woman. You can ask him, that sounds really cool. Do you mean like on a date? And if he's like, oh no, not a date, I don't like you like that, you have every right to be like, great, I don't like you either. I'm glad we can just go hang out. Or you have every right to be like, sorry, I don't really spend that kind of one-on-one time with guys if it's not a date. But that sounds fun though. The reason why I say that is because I think oftentimes in Christian culture, people don't realize that the details of dating are negotiable. I want to say that again. The details of dating are negotiable. Just because Johnny Boy asks you out for coffee or for lunch or to jump on FaceTime for 2 hours, whatever it is, you don't have to, the answer is not yes or no. He doesn't run this. You know what I mean? He's not the king of your emotions and the king of your time. Just because he's pursuing you doesn't mean that he is the pursuant, and if you miss out on this opportunity, you'll die a virgin. You don't have to feel like you have to say yes just because this man asks you out and you don't even know if it's a date or not. It's all negotiable. So if a guy is like, hey, I really want to take you out, you're allowed to be like, can you clarify what you mean by take me out? And if he, as a grown man, doesn't have the ability to articulate what he means by take you out, then he probably wouldn't be a great conversationalist anyway. It's probably going to be a boring lunch. And I don't mean that he doesn't have to be able to say, I have a desire to make you my wife someday. That's creepy, but he should be able to say, honestly, we've had 2 classes together this semester, and I think you're kind of cute, and I'd like to get to know you better. That counts. You see what I mean? So that is the second way to get a date, is to clarify these little Christian hangouts that keep happening in culture. When I tell people that my husband was the first person that I dated, when I tell people that my husband was my first boyfriend, a lot of people think that I was hiding in the basement alone and afraid, and then Aaron showed up and we just ran off into the sunset. The devil is a lie. That's not what happened. I never went through a breakup before, but I did find myself at people's house for Thanksgiving just because I was a Christian trying to be nice, and I was like, do you like me, or y'all just trying to give me free holiday food? I'm confused, bruh. I had to learn how to get to a point where I was like, I'm not going to be just hanging out with you and your siblings. Confused if you like me, if we dated. I don't know what this is. I'm confused. You need to explain yourself. You need to explain yourself. And if you can't, I'm going home. Because I pay for my electricity and I would like to use it. So the third way to get a date, and again, we are going, someone said, I'll take the holiday food though. It wasn't that good. Someone said, number 3, oh, wait, no, I said, this is me talking now. So the third way to get a date, again, we're going from obvious to inconspicuous, is to say yes to a date. A lot of times you might get asked on a date and you might not think that he is, and this is more so to women, this one right here, but you might not think he is the hottest thing on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, you might not see him and get all hot and bothered, but you can still say yes to a date. I try to remind Christian folk, a first date does not mean that you gonna get married to them. Now, maybe you will, and congratulations, but You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to say yes to a date. Now, if you think that they're just like a terrible person and y'all are just completely incompatible, or if you've just gone through a breakup and you know you ain't ready and you know you need to be going back to Bible study on Friday night, you don't need to be going to no date. Like, if it doesn't make sense, then it just doesn't make sense. But you can say yes to a date. You can just like, you can get to know somebody. Just stop making it weird. Stop making it such a big deal. Now, when we're talking fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth date, and there really is no exact number for that, but when we're talking, you know that you're not compatible with this person, you know that it doesn't make sense, but you just bored, and you just need some free food. No, boo. If you are just that desperate for some free food, you DM me and I will Venmo you $15 to go get you some lunch. Because actually, I'm just kidding. Because there's 132 people in here and I have a child and we have a family and I can't be Venmoing everybody. But somebody need to call your parents, call your pastor, say, look, I almost went on a date with a hot mess just because I needed me some Chipotle. You better learn how to meal prep and meal plan. Get you a Costco or a Sam's Club or a BJ's gift card or a membership card, and learn how to buy in bulk and plan your meals properly so you don't have to be going on a date with some butthead just because you're scared of dying alone. Okay, so the fourth way to get a date, again, going from obvious to inconspicuous, is to let someone know that you'd like to get to know them better without saying the word date. Now, this applies to both men and women. This is actually what my husband did. He did not use the word date. And on our first conversation, we clarified our intentions, and it was awesome, and it was super cool, and I married the guy. But you can let someone know that you want to get to know them better and spend one-on-one time with them. Men and women both. Excuse me. I know a lot of people have such a hard time with, a lot of women have such a hard time with not wanting to ask a guy on a date. And I respect that so much. I've never done that. No, in marriage now, because I'll like take my husband out to like his favorite spot or something. I've never asked a guy on a date, and it's not something that I would naturally encourage young women to do. But you can let someone that you'd like to get to know, let someone know that you'd like to get to know them better. You know, if it's a friend of yours, or if it's a like I said, like a coworker, or you know how sometimes like it's such a romantic comedy / TikTok kind of story where you're just randomly, you see somebody like exercising outside your apartment and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go take him some water. So you go take him some water, and then you guys like end up chit-chatting like, oh, I like the sunshine. Oh, you like the sunshine? Yeah, my name's Billy. My name's Sue. And then you just kind of find yourself talking, and in your head you're kind of like, oh my gosh, I think something's happening. Especially for young women, I want you to understand this, and for women in general, like, well, young or old, however old you are, I want you to understand you're allowed to say, I'm really enjoying this conversation. How would you feel about like hanging out some more? What are you up to this weekend? You're allowed to say that. Like, that is okay. You can let them know that you'd like to get to know them better without saying, I think you're super hot. What are you doing for the rest of your life? Oh, I want to have babies. Don't be that girl. Like, calm down. So find out. I mean, if you have to stand in front of your mirror or something and practice, then practice. But find ways to practice dropping a handkerchief. Find ways to practice dropping a hint. Find ways to practice, like being sweet, like saying a thing, like, I'd like to get to know you better without saying, can we go on a date every Friday night until we die? The next thing, it's number 5 in the ways to get a date from obvious to inconspicuous. Number 5, and I'm going to say number 5 and number 6 pretty quick. So number 5 is to start a conversation with a compliment. I can't tell you guys how many times I have young women, and guys too, but especially young women, send me a DM and say, I saw this really cute guy, but I didn't know what to say. Or there's a really cute guy, but I don't know how to talk to him. well, then give him a compliment. It doesn't have to be, hi, you're the sexiest person I've ever seen. That's very inappropriate. And I think a lot of times that's what people think when they think compliments, because that's what they text their friends. So they're like, oh, that's the compliment. I can't dare say that to his face. No, say something inappropriate. Like, you know, like, sorry, I read a comment that kind of threw me off, but I'm gonna just keep talking about what I was talking about. But you can say, like, you know, hey, I like it. Did you get a haircut? I really like it. Your shoes look really good. I think that's really cool. There's a way to do this on social media as well. And it doesn't have to be public. You can send somebody a DM. Like, you don't have to let everybody know that you complimenting him. Like, go liking all his photos and commenting stuff like, LOL, I liked Tuesday too. You don't need everybody to see that you saying something to him. Send him a DM and be like, your last post was really inspiring. I love when you talk about stuff like that. And then see if the conversation goes somewhere. And if the conversation doesn't go somewhere, like, that's okay. If you don't end up going on a date, that's okay. But y'all got it. And I say this kind of with a harshness in a loving way, because I get your DMs a lot. A lot of times, y'all are worried about not knowing how to get a guy to know that you exist, or get a guy to know that you're like talking to him and stuff, or like you're interested in him and stuff, but you're not saying anything to him. So I just don't know how else y'all think y'all supposed to have a conversation if you're not starting a conversation. Someone said some people don't check DMs. That's right. Some people don't check DMs. So find another way. Send them a text message. If you don't have their phone number, then don't go find it on yellowpages.com, but maybe that's not the person you're supposed to be texting right now. So I think a lot of this is like, we have to remember in dating, the people that you want to date, they are human people. Don't put them so high on this pedestal of like, oh, I don't know how to talk to them. It's okay to feel a little bit nervous, but they are human just like you are. And you can say, hey, you can say what's up. And you can start a conversation with a compliment. If you're not ready for a compliment yet, that's okay. You're still trying to figure out what the compliment would be. That's all good. The next thing that you can do is start a conversation with common ground. Yeah? You start a conversation with, you know, if he's always posting, he and his family go to this one vacation spot, send him a DM. Oh my goodness, that is crazy. I totally went to that resort with my family when I was a kid. Or, wow, I see that you like this sports team. My favorite sports team is a rival. We would totally be arguing at the next, you know, Super Bowl or whatnot. You know what I mean? You could start with a common ground. And if you're looking at someone and you think they're super attractive and you're really interested in them and you can't find anything to say to them and you can't find any common grounds and you guys don't have anything in common and you have nothing to talk about, that is possible that you are infatuated with them and not really interested. And you need to check yourself. You need to check yourself. Thank you to the compliments about my shirt. It says somebody give God some praise. It's available at 91 Co. NINETY number 1 CO 91 Co. It may or may not be my company. You may or may not be helping pay rent. Thank you, boo. So there's that. And last, number 7, the last thing on ways to get a date. What? There's many ways to get a date, I'm sure, but the last thing, number 7, in ways to get a date is to flirt with your eyes and hope something happens. Y'all gotta stop doing that. Y'all gotta stop. I love y'all, but y'all gotta cut that out. Y'all gotta stop thinking that if you like somebody and they don't know you exist, say you go to, so I'm gonna just use the example of college. Say you're in college with somebody and you like them and they don't know you exist. So you think that every time they walk by, you're just gonna go. What do you expect to come out of that? If something does come out of that, he's creepier than you are. So cut it out. We gotta talk to people. And I get that talking to people can be difficult. Even though it seems like I'm wildly comfortable talking to people, I'm wildly comfortable talking to people with a security blanket, also known as my phone. But I do have social anxiety. I do have diagnosed anxiety disorder. I have ADHD, I have OCD, and I have Tourette syndrome. So I get what it's like to want to talk to somebody, to want to talk to somebody, to want to say something, to want to express yourself, and your mind is like, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. I get it. I totally get it. But if you are interested in getting to know somebody, if you are interested in having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, if you are interested in sitting across from somebody at a coffee table or a Panera Bread Co. or a St. Louis Bread Co. for people in Missouri that are going to go off on me for saying Panera Bread Co., then you at some point are going to have to use your words to communicate with them. Our daughter, Isabella Brave, she is 13 months old, also known as 1 year old. But apparently I'm a millennial mom, so I'm supposed to tell y'all the exact months. Our daughter, Isabella Brave, will be 13 months old in 3 days. And we tell her all the time, look, little small baby child, use your words. I know some people might be like, she doesn't have words yet. Yes, she does, because at her 1 year checkup, her doctor looked at me, looked at the chart, looked at the baby, looked at the chart, looked at me, and said, I'm sorry, ma'am. It seems like your daughter is developmentally 2 years old, and I can't find her developmental level on the chart. Our 1 year old, we have full conversations with her as though she is 2 or 3 years old. It is overwhelming, but it's actually super adorable most of the time. So today she was sitting in her high chair and she wanted to eat some lunch, and I gave her lunch and she was like, and Aaron said, Isabella Brave, what are you trying to get? And Isabella Brave said, and Aaron said, Isabella Brave, what are you trying to get? And Isabella said, and Aaron said, Isabella Brave, use your words. And Isabella Brave said, food, please. How he supposed to know you like him if you looking at him going, In the words of Aaron Collins and every other parent in the world, use your words. Speak, text, DM, comment. Do something to reach out and just show some interest. This isn't something that I'm saying to men. This isn't something that I'm saying to women. This goes for both men and women. Women, when you believe that a man is supposed to pursue you, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to hide away and he's supposed to grab the shovel and be like, guess I gotta dig and find one of these lady seeds to go plant in my own garden. That's creepy, bruh. And men, bruh, if she seems intimidating, she seems out of your reach, she seems like she would never go on a date with you, how you gonna know if you don't ask her? Guess you're not gonna know. You gonna be sitting over there talking about, all my friends had weddings, all my friends falling in love, bro. I'm just sitting over here watching TikTok. Yeah, that's what you're gonna be doing if you don't talk to her. And again, understand that just because you talk to somebody and you let them know that you're interested and you let them know that you want to get to know them better, it does not automatically mean that you're going to date them. And just because you date somebody, it does not automatically mean you're going to marry them. But it does mean that you're going to learn how to take what is step one, which is what is dating to you, your foundation of being intentional toward getting to know someone and enjoying someone. You're going to take that into real life and now pursue that, getting to know them and enjoying them. And if they say no, if it doesn't work out, that's okay. But life is not about asking for things that you know will give you a yes. That doesn't make any sense. Because if we knew we would always get a yes, then we wouldn't ask. So put yourself out there a little bit. Talk to somebody. You know what I mean? Just talk to somebody. Say, hello, I like your socks. I like that those socks that go up to your knees. Those are some cool socks. Where'd you get those socks? Please don't say anything I just said. That's just creepy. So step 3. after you've asked, again, I don't know if they're gonna say yes or no. I can't actually, like, even though I'm giving y'all steps, I can't actually give you play-by-plays because I don't know how these things are gonna work. Cause life, right? Remember that meme, that one girl? She is queen. Well, technically Elizabeth. So welcome to ADHD. So step 3, once you ask that personality, at some point you're gonna get a yes, right? At some point you're gonna get a yes, or you're gonna say yes, and you guys are gonna actually go on a date. So step 3 is establishing the details of the date. It's actually not going on the date, because remember what we said earlier, the details of dating are negotiable. A lot of people think that it goes from like, oh, find a date, then go on the date. Nuh-uh. There's a bunch of information in the middle, baby. Why don't you just meet me in the middle? I tried to change keys just in case I put this on YouTube, but I still need to monetize it to make some money. But I didn't want Maren Morris and not Dua Lipa, Zed, or whatever the Caucasian band, the DJs. There's a couple of them. I think it's Cal's Videras. I didn't want them to say, "That's my song, give me my check." I do not want to share the check. I'm just trying to be transparent. Concepts don't exist anymore. We got to do something. Can I get an amen by my shirt? Not mine. This is mine. So at some point in there, if someone is asking you on a date, chances are they're planning the date, right? And so you've got or if you're asking them on a date, then you're probably planning the date. So you've got y'all, my computer's about to die. So you've got will the date be face to face? And I say that because, again, COVID, and also because of online dating, somebody might be like, oh, let's FaceTime, or oh, let's do this. And you might be like, no, actually, I'm sorry. I just want to talk on the phone, whatever it is. What is the time and day of the date? They might be like, oh, let's go out on a Saturday at 9:00. I've got this awesome club that I'll be going to. Be like, actually, buddy boy, I don't do clubs. I do chicken sandwiches. I'll beat you there at Thursday at 2. Then you've also got where will the date be? So they might say yeah, we're going to go mini golfing. It's going to be 2 hours away because it's the best mini golfing place ever. And then, so we'll just go ahead and ride together. And then you could be like, actually, I don't really feel comfortable going that crazy far. So can we find somewhere closer? How will you get there? Again, they might be like, we're going to have to take the bus because that's just the best option. And you might just feel more comfortable driving your own car, not riding with them. So that's negotiable. And then, so those are the kind of the main things. I don't want you guys to be a complicated date. You know what I mean? I'm not saying if a guy is hey, he takes all the time to plan out a date. I really don't want to encourage you guys to be like, look, I'm sorry, based on my own things in my heart, I don't like that kind of pasta because the gluten is just so heavy on my tummy. If you have a gluten allergy, I'm not picking on you right now. Okay, I understand. This is not about actual health complexities. I don't like this gluten that they have there, and the walls are blue. And I don't want to ride in your car because it's ugly, and I don't want to be seen in your car. If your intentions with negotiating are impure and are shallow and make you kind of a diva, it might be time again to revisit the concept of infatuation and to revisit why you're wanting to negotiate these things. But it is good to remember that you can negotiate the details of a date, but make sure that it's based on things that really do matter, like your moral convictions and things like that. For example, if I were single and a guy were to ask me to go out to a club or a bar, I don't go to clubs or bars. And so I would let him know I don't go to clubs or bars. Is there somewhere else that we can go? A lot of people might be like, oh, Jamie, wouldn't that be a red flag that you don't want to go out with him at all, like that he's a bad person and he's a sinner. Yeah, because I'm also a sinner. We all are. So I'm not going to equate like, oh, he wants to go to a bar with, oh, he's a terrible person. If we can meet in the middle and go to Olive Garden and Chili's, and maybe the conversation of why he likes the bar can come up, then maybe it's worth understanding why he wanted to go to the bar in the first place. If he wanted to go to the bar because he wants to get absolutely wasted, then yeah, I think that's a terrible idea. But if you wanted to go to the bar, because they happen to have karaoke there on Saturday nights and he loves karaoke, that's actually a different conversation. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, that totally makes sense. I'm still not going to the bar, but I'm glad that you explained it, and I'm glad I now know more of who you are and why you wanted to go there. I've got to find my computer cord really quick because I don't want it to die just like the sky. That made no sense. So there's that. Someone said, or his sister works there. That's so good. I mean, he could literally be like, look, my grandfather started this bar 50 years ago, and it's just the place where my family likes to get together. You know what I mean? So it's so easy, and we're going to get to this in a second. It's so easy to write people off. It's so easy to write people off. And then later, if you knew all the details, you might be like, oh man, I should not have written them off. So just be mindful of that. Anyways, step 3, establish the details of the date. Even if you're not the one establishing them, just know that based on your level of comfortability, based on your moral convictions, it is a-okay to negotiate the details of said date. I really needed a sip of water, and I kept thinking, let me wait until someone else is talking and then I'll get some, and then, you know, I remembered what I was doing. Also, side note, some people might call this old-fashioned. I don't care. Somebody needs to know where you're going at all times. Friend, parents, whoever, someone needs to know. If you're going on a date, guy or girl, somebody needs to know. This world is crazy. So it is what it is, babushki. Is that a word? Is that like a bad word? I have no idea. I just said it. I think I heard somebody say it, and now I'm literally in panic mode. Let me not even Google it, because if it is a bad word, then I'm gonna start crying because I said a bad word. Wow. Y'all just heard my brain. So here we go. Step 4. Step 1 was what is dating to you. Step 2 was get the date. Step 3 is establish the details of the date. Step 4 in the 5-step process, step 4 is go on the date. The main question that when you guys are talking about, when you guys are asking me about dating, one of the main questions you guys want to know is what do you talk about on a date? What do you not talk about on a date? How do you know? Someone said that's not old-fashioned, that's more relevant than ever. Amen. Don't be going on dates and not telling people where you're going. So people want to know, what do you talk about on a date? What makes sense to talk about on a date? What should you not talk about on a date? People want to know, what do you wear on a date? I feel like you wear on a date, in my opinion, you wear on a date, especially when you're talking about your first few dates with someone, when you're not in a relationship with someone. You wear on a date what you would wear if you were going to that same place with your friends. There are very few instances, if no instances, where that is not applicable. But you know what I mean? If you're going to lunch, what would you wear to lunch? If you're going to, play mini golf, what would you wear to play mini golf? If you're going roller skating, what would you wear roller skating? If it's a FaceTime, what would you wear on... Actually, no, don't wear what you wear on FaceTime with your friends, because we know we looking a hot mess on FaceTime with our friends. You don't have to feel the pressure to try to look perfect or anything like that. But it is a good idea to, at least make yourself presentable. Aaron and our first date was on FaceTime. Our first date they were phone dates, and then they turned into FaceTime. And I mean, of course I would have on sweatpants on the bottom half, and I actually probably dress like this. Right now I have on workout pants, and then I have on a sweatshirt. And I didn't wear makeup on our FaceTime days. I think I didn't wear makeup until our first in-person date. And that was the choice. That wasn't a spiritual conviction. It's just sometimes I wear makeup, sometimes I don't. Anyways, so these are some things that you can talk about on a date. I wanted to give you guys a list of some things that you can talk about, because I think that it is really important to kind of know your boundaries before you're going into a date. Some people might be like, oh no, don't plan for what you're going to talk about. Well, once again, if you don't have any concept of what your personal boundaries are as far as what you do and don't want to talk about on a date, then you're opening yourself up for anything, and that is not healthy. So the first thing that I would say, also, again, thank you guys for liking my sweatshirt. This is one of ours. It's at 91Co, NINETY 1CO on Insta. I don't think we have a ton right now because it's a really popular sweatshirt, but we do get them back in stock every few weeks. So just follow us on Insta and you'll see it someday. That's not my department. Okay, so one, you can ask about their day. Ask about their day before the date. You know what I mean? Ask about like, so how was your day? What did you do today? What was it like at work? You have to gauge in the same way. Sorry if it's pausing for you guys. I love you dearly. I don't really have like a backup plan for that. It's just, 2020, bro. That's what happens. So you have to gauge in the same way that you gauge any other conversation at their comfort level. It's possible that their day at work was absolutely horrendous, and so the day of the date, and so you can be like, how is your day going? If they're like, work was kind of tough today. No, you're okay. You guys are so sweet in the comments. So if they're like, work was kind of tough for me today. You have to gauge if it seems like the kind of answer where you should go, I'm so sorry, do you want to talk about it? Or if it seems like the kind of thing where you should be like, man, okay, we don't have to talk about that. I can't tell you that. These are all contingent on your social skills, which if you don't have great social skills, like, that's okay. This is a date, a one-on-one situation. No one should be judging you. If the other person is judging you, then that's on them. This is a conversation where you're getting to know someone. So I say you could talk about their day before the date, their week before the date, something you have in common that you didn't know until the date. So if you guys both pull up and then you realize that you drive the same car, or if he has on like a shirt that is from one of your favorite companies or something like that, or brands, then you can be like, oh my goodness, I didn't know you liked them, something like that. You can talk about their hobbies and interests, your hobbies and interests. Growing up is always, / childhood is oftentimes a great date question. Just like, did you grow up here? What was it like? Did you enjoy it? Have you always lived here? That's always a cool conversation to kind of get to know someone. The Christian, I have 9 roommates version of that is tell me your story, but we're not going to do that on a date. So then there's also like your favorite sports teams, music and movies, like talk about that kind of stuff. Pop culture. So like, do you have Disney Plus? Like depending on like how old you guys are, like, so do you use TikTok, or do you feel like you're too old, or do you feel like you're too young? If they have kids, you can ask them about their kids. I know that's a controversial topic for some people, like, oh, I would never date somebody with kids. Okay, fine, then this doesn't apply to you. But if they have kids, or if you have kids, you can ask them like, so like, how are your kids doing today, that kind of thing. And yeah, I've always worn one earring for like 15 years. That just is a thing. You can talk about their siblings or their family life. You can just be like, so how many siblings do you have? Or, that's so crazy that your family has a farm, or whatever it is. Like, and you can talk about their hopes and dreams. Be like, or your hopes and dreams. Like, figure out ways to incorporate conversations of dreams that you have. Like, oh, I've always dreamt of living in Australia. I've always thought that would be really cool. Or I really hope to own like 12 guitars one day because I want to do this crazy YouTube video. You can talk about things that are interesting to you. I talked about this in an older Instagram live. I talked about interests and then traditions and then character when it comes to like your list per se. And so first dates, earlier dates I should say, are really going to be focused on your interests, and like I said, getting to know someone. A lot of people want to jump into the first date with, so who did you vote for in the last election? Or, so let's talk about the book of Acts, and we're going to talk about speaking in tongues, and I want to know what you believe about the Holy Spirit. A lot of people want to jump into that on a first date. You grown, but I recommend getting to know someone for their interests and getting to know someone on that level first, and then allowing it to go deeper later. Now, again, I know that might sound hypocritical because a lot of people know that my husband and I, we were quite a fast dating relationship to marriage, if you will, based on most people's standards. And so obviously we had to have very serious conversations very early on. But excuse me, even with that, there were some very serious and deep conversations that we did not have until later. And naturally, because we've only been married for a little over 2 years, there are conversations that we're still having now. And even people that have been married for 20 or 30 years, they're still getting to know each other and they're still having conversations now. So understand that you're not going to figure everything out on a first date. I made a list of some things that I recommend you stay away from talking about on a first date when it comes to theology, political opinions, the news, the pandemic, their income. No, that's not a conversation to have. Sexual boundaries in a relationship in the context of convictions. And so someone like and the reason why I say that about sexual convictions in a relationship in the context of convictions is because a lot of people, like, say hypothetically you're saving sex for marriage. That's what I did. My husband and I, we waited, and we are very glad that we did. With that being said, if that were to come up in conversation, then like, sorry, there's so much in my brain right now, and I was trying to wrap this up by 6:00, but that did not happen. If that were to come up in conversation that you're waiting for marriage to have sex, there's nothing wrong with that. You should be proud of that. However, if this is a first date and you guys are sitting down over a plate of pasta, and he says to you, so how was your day? And you say, look, I'm looking for a man. When's the last time you had sex? That is a really good way to develop a habit in yourself of seeing people on the opposite side of the spectrum in which God sees them. I know that a lot of people want to start a date, want to have a first or second date where they know everything that that person believes theologically and politically, because those are very important topics. And there are some things that Aaron and I had to agree on in order to move forward in a relationship. And there are things that in my singlehood, I would not go on a second date with someone if I were to find out that we disagreed on something theologically or politically that was deeply rooted in my personal convictions. I'm not talking about surface level things like, do you believe that Jesus had a beard? Now, if that is a deep theological conversation for you, then this probably just is not a good Instagram chat. But what I'm getting at, you guys, someone said, how good a friend should people be before dating? You don't have to be friends with someone before you start dating them. You can be, and that's amazing, but you don't have to be. Guys, here's the thing. When you go on a date with someone, or when you become friends with someone, or when you have a child, or when you have a relationship with your parents, you want to see people the way that God sees them. And again, this is coming from the lens of being a Christian and talking about dating and relationships. You want to be able to see them the way that God sees them. You know what I mean? When God pursues a relationship with us, God sees us for who we are, right here, right now. And everything else comes into place as our relationship with God develops. It is very possible to go on a date with someone who does not have the same convictions that you have on drinking alcohol. It is possible to go on a date with someone that does not have the same convictions that you have when it comes to drinking alcohol. Now, I'm not going to say first, second, third date, because once we get into, if you look at the fourth date, then we get into all these specifics that are going to get people so caught up and make you so overwhelmed and make you feel so confused and so frustrated and be so single. As you get to know someone, understand this preface, dear Lord, understand this preface. It is not your goal to change anyone. You should not enter into a dating relationship to change anyone. But what I am saying is that if at any point in a committed relationship, if that person does not draw you closer to Christ and God's will for your life, and if you cannot draw that person closer to Christ and God's will for your life, then that relationship is not going to work out. So if you think that on a first date, they're gonna have it all together and y'all are gonna be on the same page about everything and everybody's theology is gonna be lined up perfectly, and you're a black and you're dating a white man and he's supposed to understand everything about Juneteenth from the first day y'all go out, or you are white and you're dating a black guy and he's supposed to understand your family's beliefs from the first time y'all go on a date, or y'all are going out and he gets a beer and you're uncomfortable because you don't like alcohol and you think that now he's a terrible person and he's not a Christian and y'all can't get to know each other, you will be single for a long time. Or you will end up in a relationship with someone that believes the same way that you believe, and you won't be able to draw each other closer to Christ because apparently you believe that things don't change. Apparently you believe that growth doesn't happen. Apparently you believe that the first date, the first impression is who that person will be forever, but that's not how God sees you. So why are you holding a first date to that same standard? It is not your job to change anyone. You should never enter into a relationship with the goal, purpose, or intention of changing someone, but understand that this is why I say the first date is not to be walked into with, here is my theological conviction checklist and he better match up. It's not healthy, because I can promise you that it's very likely that if you go on a date with a God-fearing man, you might not match up to all of his standards either. I like to wait like an hour into these chats to say the sassy things just in case people get offended in the earlier part and they leave. I think when people don't want to enter into a relationship with someone to change them, which is you should not, that is not a good thing to do. They think the extreme of, well, then I will just enter into a relationship with someone that's already perfect and ready to go. That doesn't exist. So when you're talking about these things on the date, and then you're a couple dates in, or maybe even on the first date. Again, like I said, I can't tell you exactly what date will and won't bring about these conversations, but eventually those things will come up. Eventually conversations like smoking and cussing and R-rated movies and pornography. Eventually these conversations will come up sometime between the first date and when you've been married for 50 years. Those conversations are bound to happen. So how do you get there? I recommend that while you're talking about your favorite movies and your hobbies and your family life and how you grew up and the church you go to, that you listen for things that are interesting and you ask questions based on what's important to them or if it's important to you. So if a guy is talking and he's so here's the thing, I don't think that it's appropriate on a first date when you're getting to know someone to ask them their sexual history. I just don't personally believe that's appropriate. So if you're sitting there talking with him and he says something like, yeah, well, my ex, we lived together for 3 months. And it's crazy because she showed me this movie, and then he goes off topic. So now the door has been opened and he mentioned that he lived with his ex for 3 months. Now, it's very possible that he lived with his ex for 3 months and then he realized that he didn't need to be doing that. And so he moved out because he didn't want to do that and that wasn't appropriate. It wasn't okay. And he gave his life over to the Lord or recommitted, whatever it is. Or it could be that he thinks it's totally fine to live with someone that you're dating. You know what I mean? So because it's now been brought up, I do think that it's an appropriate time for you as the other person to be like, crazy story. Did you say that you lived with your ex for 3 months? And then talk about it. That might be the first date. That might be the fifth date. That might be the eighth date. At some point, those things are going to come up naturally. And the best way to encourage that natural progression of conversation is to listen well and to ask intentional questions, to learn more about the things that seem to be important to them as they talk about them, and to also gain more understanding when it comes to the things that are important to you. I hope that explains that well, because I don't want to discourage serious conversations, but I also don't want to encourage anxious mindsets when it comes to getting to know someone in a dating relationship. Okay, so sorry, I have to do this because I have the white font on my shirt, and so I have to do that. So from there, first date, second date, whatever. From there, you kind of got to decide, how do I know if I want another date? Right. Someone said, listen to them and not listen for your answer. I think what you mean by that, and I do like that you said that, it's when someone's talking, to actually listen to gain understanding instead of just listening to see if you can find little hints, let me listen and see if I can figure out who he voted for. And don't do that. Don't do that. So when you're deciding about going on another date with someone, it's as you go on more dates, you'll learn more about that person. You'll naturally start talking about deeper subjects, and you can bring these subjects up. If you have not watched my live from, I think, 2 months ago, called How Picky is Too Picky, I think it's called. It's all about the list. We talked about interests and traditions and character. And so those things will naturally come up, and you'll just get deeper and deeper as you genuinely listen to them and ask intentional questions. You may want to continue going on dates if you have similar or different interests, similar or different traditions, but you have common ground when it comes to character and a bonus, physical attraction to each other. So yeah, there's that. And then this is what I'm going to leave you guys with, because next week is part 2, and it's all about taking it to the next level. So step 5 is go on another date. Now, if you go out with someone and obviously you don't want to go on another date, you don't have to go on another date. But if you do choose to go on another date, you find this person interesting, you think you'd like to go out again, I'd say that by the end of the date, I mean, you might not know by the end of the date, but you might. By the end of the date, try to set an obvious or inconspicuous goal when you leave the date, or just an obvious or inconspicuous note. So something along the lines of, we should do this again sometime, and that's pretty obvious. Also, a lot of guys like to say this, and guys, if you're listening, I'd say most women find this very attractive. If you say, could you text me when you get home? I want to know you made it in safe. My husband still does that. Like, he does that to this day. Like, if he is, I'm trying to think of an example, because with COVID it doesn't really happen anymore. But yeah, like if he is, say we're both at my parents' and we drove 2 different cars. That's like, there's it's so hard with COVID because we really don't go out much. And then we should check out that concert you mentioned. So say, during the date, you guys have been talking about like a concert that's coming up or an event that's coming up. Then you could say like, we should check that out together. We should totally go. Also, if they have something coming up, right? So I'm thankful to be dating my husband for only 14 years. Such great advice. Thank you so much. That is really sweet. Another really good thing that doesn't always lead to another date, but can lead to good conversation to kind of help gauge where the interest level is if they have like a job interview coming up soon or something like that, is to say, let me know how your job interview goes. And you can always like text them and follow up if they told you the day that it's going to be, and be like, how was the interview? Or I'm praying it goes well, something like that. So I do think that, whether you're a guy or a girl, if you've already decided by the end of the date that you really enjoyed their company, you really enjoyed that person, I think that it's a really good idea to let them know. And if you're not really sure, it takes you a couple of days to kind of figure it out, think about it, talk to your friends about it, get some feedback. I think that it's totally fine to follow up after a couple of days, guy or a girl. If you're a girl, you don't like, I know like they can seem overwhelming. You don't have to text and like follow up and be like, oh my gosh, that was so great, when is our next date? But you can just text, a couple of days later and be like, last Tuesday was so great, so glad we were able to connect, or something like that. And then from there, you can kind of gauge their interest and figure out if they like you, if they feel whatever, that's a whole nother conversation. But I was joking a few weeks ago when I told you guys that I wanted to do a video called How to Date, and you guys were like, but wait, I think that is really helpful. So that is why I made this video, and I hope it was really helpful for you guys. So yeah, okay. This was pretty long, but it was a 5-step process. I'm really glad we were able to talk about it. Next week, we are going to talk about how to take it to the next level. And then the 3rd week, we're going to talk about boundaries in dating. The 4th week, we're going to talk about how to break up, just in case that is needed. Also, if you want to join my book club, starting next week, we are going to be going through my book, Wait It Out. It's all about dating and relationships and singlehood. It's totally free, the book club is. Just go to my highlights here on my Instagram. And also, I will be highlighting some of my podcast episodes, which go way more in depth about dating and relationships on my story all night as I randomly think of episodes to share with you guys. I'll try to just keep encouraging you guys and answering your questions as I can. And for the stuff that I don't know, I'm sorry, but I'm thankful for the things that I am able to answer, and I'm really appreciating your comments as you guys are saying that this is helpful. If you are already in love, shameless plug, my song 90s Kids dropped yesterday. It is all over my Instagram. You can check it out. It's called 90s Kids, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, all those places. Thank you so much for listening. It is on my TikTok. If you guys, if you're in a relationship, I would love if you went over to my TikTok and did the video that I did where you like post pictures of the person that you're in love with. Is super cute. But I know most of you guys are singles, so I really would appreciate your trolling and your parodies, because I remember being single and all I wanted to do was just like pick on all my married friends. And so please, I welcome all of that, because I think you guys are really awesome and hilarious. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you joining me this Saturday night for Wait It Out. We're going to do this again next Saturday, part 2 of how to date. We're going to be talking about how to take it to the next level. Ooh, ooh. Okay, have a good night, guys. Thank you. Bye.